Hello there and welcome. In this video, we're going to talk about Chapter 2 in Introduction to Economics 1. A market is the place where a group of buyers and a group of sellers meet and agree on a price for a specific item. The main parts of a market are buyers, sellers, and place. Markets may resemble different types of competitive features. The main types of competition are perfect competition and imperfect competition. In an perfectly competitive market, the good or the service is exactly the same among the firms, which means there is no single difference in the good or service among the sellers. Two many buyers and many sellers exist, which means one of them can't change the market structure by themselves. Third, entrance to market is free, which means everyone can freely enter that market without facing any difficulties. And the fourth, the last one, full access to price information, which means the market system determines the price and all the firms take it as given. Any exception of these four rules causes the market to become an imperfectly competitive. There are different cases of imperfect competitiveness, but the extremes are only two. These are monopolies and monopsonies. In monopolies, there is only one seller, which of course he or she is a very happy seller, and in monopsonies there is only one buyer. Remember, markets were the places where demand and supply meet. Demand is the quantity of a good or service that a consumer is willing and able to purchase. This is important. The consumer must be both willing and be able to buy it. That means if I want a luxurious sports car with only $1,000 in my pocket, I am not a demander in that market. Demand and price have negative relation between them. The general rule is that when prices increase, the demand decreases. However, there are some cases that, despite the increase in prices, demand increases too. Demand curve is the illustration of how much of a specific good or service a buyer would buy at different prices. Because when prices go up, the demand goes down, it is negatively sloped. The negative slope shows price and demand have negative relation between them. And despite we economists insist on the word curve, it may also be a line. The negative relation between price and demand is called the law of demand. A very important concept for economics is ceteris paribus. Social variables are hard to put in an equation because they are not easily measured and the relation among them can't be figured out easily. Because of that, economists use ceteris paribus. It means other things being equal. This simplifies research and makes it possible to see a variable's effect on another variable. Like individuals have their own demand curves, a market as a whole also has a demand curve. Market demand is calculated using all of the individual demands in that market. Another important issue in economics are income and substitution effects. Income effect is that the decrease in a product's price causes the buyers to feel wealthier because their purchasing power increases. And the substitution effect is that the decrease in a product's price causes marginal utility divided by price ratio to increase. So it causes the product to be more attractive than others. A demand curve may shift or a movement along the curve may happen. In a market, change in price causes a movement along the curve, whereas any other change causes a shift in demand. Another important variable in market is supply. It is the quantity of a good or service that a producer is willing and able to produce at a specific price. Again, it is important that the seller must be both willing and able. Supply and price have positive relation between them, unlike demand. Supply curve is the illustration of how much of a good or service is produced at different prices. It's positively sloped due to the fact that there is a positive relation between price and supply. The positive relation between them is called the law of supply. And again, it's called a curve, but it may be a line also. As for demand, the market supply can be calculated using individual supply curves. It is the sum of all the individual supply curves. As for demand, a change in price causes a movement along the supply curve. On the other hand, any other change causes a shift in supply curve. Remember, market is the place where demand and supply meet. With that meet, the market equilibrium happens. Equilibrium happens at the point that supply and demand curves intersect. Markets are where demand and supply meet, but supply and demand are not always the same. Due to the changes in other variables, supply or demand may shift. When that happens, the equilibrium point also changes. In graphics, you can see a positive shift in demand causing both equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity to take higher values. Likewise, a shift in supply curve also changes the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. In this figure, a positive shift in supply happens. In the table, you can see how simultaneous changes in supply and demand creates a different equilibrium point. Thanks for watching.